So we're going to do this one first. Happily This Christmas by Susan Mallery. One of my favorite books. So let's start with the first paperclip. On page 199. Hey, Mom, what's up? She motioned to the chair opposite hers. He slipped off his backpack and took the seat, then looked at her expectantly. Camilla Henderson called me a couple days ago, she said. Hunter's eyes widened when he flushed and dropped his gaze to the floor. What did she want? You left some information off your JROTC application. She wanted me to fill in the blanks. She put her hands on the desk and laced her fingers together. You can imagine my surprise to hear what you've been planning. Joining something like that is a big deal, but that wasn't the worst of it, was it? Because I quickly realized you hadn't just applied, you faked my signature on those forms. He swallowed hard and then looked at her. You're mad, huh? Yes, I'm angry and I'm disappointed in a funny way. I'm also hurt and a little surprised. I never thought you would do something like this. Hunter, I never thought you were dishonest. Not in that way. You didn't even talk to me. You lied to them, and you lied to me by not telling me. The entire purpose of the program is to teach leadership and personal responsibility. And this is how you start? Mom, don't. He blinked back tears. I don't know what to do. I really wanted to join the program, but I knew you would say no. How could you know? You never even ask. I refuse you very little. Page 200. You wouldn't have me learning to shoot and stuff. You think it was wrong. I don't know what I would think because I never got the chance to figure it out. I wanted to join so I could show you how good it was. He wiped away his tears. It really is a great program, and I wanted it so much. I thought you would be proud of me when you found out later. She tried to remember the last time he cried. It had been at least a year, maybe longer. The tears were genuine. Hunter had never been a faker, but they didn't move her. I'm really sad, she said quietly. Mom, don't say that. He looked at her. A lot of moms said no, so I got really scared. I really wanted this. I know I was wrong and I'm sorry, but you have to understand. You betrayed my trust in you. I thought we were a team. I thought we had a special relationship where we understood we would always take care of each other, but you didn't trust me to want that best for you. You didn't trust me to listen and be responsible. You didn't trust me at all. The tears spilled down his cheeks. Don't say that, he said, his voice cracking. Don't say that. Have you ever faked my signature on a form before? He stared at her. No, I'd never do that. But you did this time, and I don't know if I can believe you about anything. That's not fair. It was just one time, Mom. Don't be like this. Don't say we're broken. We're not. I'm still who I was. I wanted it so much. You have to understand. He wiped his face again. You're right. I should have asked. I was wrong not to ask. You should punish me really bad, like a horrible punishment. I'll never do it again. I'll earn your trust back. I swear. I'll do anything. His mouth twisted. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt or disappoint you. I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't. But yet you did. The tears fell faster. Mom, please, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She believed he was, but wasn't sure enough that he was, and she was still in an impossible situation. What am I supposed to do now? Hunter looked at her. What do you mean? What should I do? Tell them what you did? His eyes widened. If you do that, then they won't let me in the program, Mom. You can't. You want me to lie too? You want me to lie for you? He shifted in his seat. Not exactly. She waited. He hunched over in his seat. If you don't tell them, he said, his voice was low and full of pain, then you're teaching me the wrong lesson. You're teaching me that it's okay to lie. But if you don't tell them the truth, then we're betraying everything ROTC stands for. Yes, we are. He stared at her. What are you going to do? Until this second, she honestly hadn't known. She didn't like either option because of what he'd done. He put her in an impossible situation unless she believed she'd raised a good kid who, despite recent events, understood the difference between right and wrong. That's up to you. His eyes widened. What do you mean? What I said, it's up to you. You created this problem, so you're going to figure out how to deal with it. She paused. Regardless of what you choose, you're going to have to be punished, but that's a separate matter. You tell me how you want to handle this. Let me know in the morning. You'll do whatever I say? Her stomach flipped over a couple of times as she thought about changing her mind. She nodded. It's on you, Hunter. I'll go along with whatever you decide. That was 199, 200, 201, 202. Page 306. Wind blew out her nose, then quickly recounted the conversation from a week ago when she confessed that she wanted more children. I didn't mean to say it, she added when she was done. I wasn't hinting at anything. You were hinting, Silver said gently, or at least testing the waters. Wind started to protest, then stopped herself. Maybe, she admitted. I do want more kids, though. Sure, but not on your own. You want them with Garrick. It is that obvious? No, but I know you. Wynne sighed heavily. I guess I was hoping he would be too excited, that he would start thinking about us being together and what it would be like. I was hoping he would see that we're a really good couple and that we would have so much more. A blended family, more children. Love? Wynne twisted the tissue and nodded. Love, she whispered. She turned to Silver. But that's not where he went at all. He went and got home from the hospital. He started talking about us having a couple of kids and co-parenting. That's when I thought I wanted more kids and he could make it happen. How it was super convenient because we live next door. The tears returned. He's not in love with me. He doesn't want to have a family together. He wants to be some kind of baby mama with a co-parenting agreement and maybe some boom boom on the side. Baby mama? Silver asked, her voice teasing. You know what I mean. I do, and I'm sorry. Wynne looked at her. I'm in love with him and he's not in love with me. You don't know that. Wynne thought about what had happened and what hadn't. I do know that. He's not in love with me. I've already learned this lesson. You can't force a man to care about you, and you can't trap him into loving you. After everything I've seen and been through, I'm back where I was 15 years ago, loving someone who doesn't love me back. 3 days after that, Garrick realized that maybe giving Wynne time was a bad decision. He hadn't seen her at all, and the only response to his text suggesting they talk had been a quick, "This isn't a good time for me." He knew he'd screw up big time, but he didn't know exactly what he'd done. Was it wrong to want to have kids with her? Shouldn't she see that he was trying to give her exactly what she wanted? He thought she was amazing and wanted to raise children with her, but how was that bad? That was 306, 307, 308, and 309. He decided enough was enough. He went next door to talk to her. Whatever was going to be on needed to be fixed. He missed her and wanted them to go back to where they had been. But when he knocked, Hunter answered the door. A Hunter who seemed older and bigger, didn't look happy to see Garrick. Is your mom around? Garrick asked, offering an easy smile. She doesn't want to see you, Hunter said flatly, so you can't come in. The slightest threatening tone was nearly as surprising as the message itself. Wynne didn't want to see him? She's still upset? He asked. Hunter rolled his eyes. Yes, she's still upset. I don't know what you did, but it's bad. My mom cried. She never cries. Even when I totally screw up, she doesn't cry. When she found out about what I did with faking her signature on JROTC application, she didn't cry. So whatever you did, you better fix it, and fast. With that, he closed the door in Garrick's face. Garrick stood there on the porch for at least a moment, trying to figure out what had just happened. He'd known Wynne was upset, but he hadn't realized how serious the situation was. Hunter was right. He had to fix it, and fast. But first he had to figure out where he'd gone wrong. Women, he thought grimly as he made his way back to the house. What had God been thinking? He sat on top of the step of the front porch and replayed the last conversation with Wynne. He said only nice things about her. He offered to have children with her, children that she wanted, so why wasn't she speaking to him? No, why was she crying? The front door opened and Jolene came out. Hey, Dad, Elijah's finally sleeping, so it's safe to come in. He glanced at her. That's okay, I'm going to sit here and think. Jolene sat next to him, wincing slightly as her butt hit the wooden porch. Fresh air, this is nice. I'm not sure I've been outside since we left the hospital. Maybe tonight we'll sit out back by the pool. Sure, good idea. We can barbecue something for dinner if you like. Water buffalo? He stared at her. What? She smiled, just making sure that you're listening. The smile faded. Dad, what's going on? You've been acting weird for a couple days now, and I haven't seen Wynne even once. Did you two have a fight? Interesting question, he thought. I don't know. She rolled her eyes. That is such a guy answer. What did you do? Maybe I didn't do anything. Maybe I was just being a great guy and she completely overreacted. Jolene stared at him without speaking. Fine, he said between gritted teeth. A week or so ago, Wynne mentioned that she regretted not having more children. There were reasons, but now Hunter's growing up and she wishes they had a bigger family. And And after you and Elijah, I came home and told Win I wanted to have more kids with her. I said that she was a great mom. I would like to have that chance to be a father again, and we should have a family. Jolene drew her brows together. So you proposed? That was 308, 309. Here comes 310 and 311. What? No, I said we could co-parent. You know, we live next door, and it would be easy for us to. His voice trailed off as he realized how ridiculous he sounded. His daughter stared at him. You offered to co-parent with her? It's what she wanted. Jolene waved to the house next door. Based on the fact that you're sitting here and she's in her house, it wasn't what she really wanted. Really, Dad? Co-parenting? Not. I love you more than life itself. Hey, let's get married? He'd been unable to ignore that proposal comment, but this one required a response. Why would you say that? Because you're hanging out together all the time and you're sleeping together. And how do you know that we're sleeping together? We've been discreet. Oh, please. You whistle after you two have boom boom. If you were anyone else's father, it would be cute, but it's not. She angled toward him. Dad, do you really want to get what you did? Not, Dad, do you really not get what you did? You're in a committed relationship with a great woman, and instead of telling her that you love her and proposing, you suggested some ridiculous co-parenting arrangement. She wouldn't want that. She doesn't need that. She doesn't need you to have more kids. She's more than capable of doing that on her own. She's a steady income and lots of friends to support her. What she doesn't have is a partner to love her and have her back. That's what she wanted. Before he could absorb what had been said, let alone figure out a response, he heard Elijah cry. I need to go check on him, Jolene said, standing. Dad, you have to fix this. Either you tell her you were a fool and of course you love her and want to marry her, or end things. You don't have to be on middle ground on this one. With that, she turned and walked back into the house. Garrick stared after her when they faced the front and waited for his world to stop spinning. Love Win? This wasn't about love. It was about having kids together, because that's what Win... He blinked and then swore underneath his breath. No, he completely and totally blown it. Jolene was right. Win didn't need him to co-parent. She could easily have more kids on her own. She wanted to be a part of something. She was an amazing and incredible woman, just like she would demand it all. He'd been so sure he was giving her exactly what she wanted. Instead, he'd been a complete idiot. Possibly hurt her in the process. Jolene was right. He had to do the right thing by Win, and that meant committing to her in a meaningful way or walking away. There was no middle ground in this situation. That was 310 and 311. On page 315, Christmas Eve day was slow at Happily Incorporated Police Station. Even those in town for the holiday weddings seemed to be on their best behavior. Garrick had planned to use this time to catch up on his paperwork, but ever since he'd talked to his daughter about what happened with Win, he'd been unable to put that conversation out of his mind. Jolene had assumed he was in love with Win, and he'd assumed that he wasn't. Only one sleepless night and unproductive morning later, he knew that his daughter had been right, and he had been a fool who might have lost the woman of his dreams. Win was great. He thought that from the very second he'd gone to ask for her help, and she jumped right in to make sure his house was warm and welcoming for his daughter. He admired her enough to have offered the kids that she wanted, a reality that made him cringe every time he thought about it, because if he really was in love with her, Win, then he'd probably pretty much done anything to mess up what could have been an incredible moment. Co-parent. Had he really suggested that? What kind of moron offered to have children with a woman before talking about how he felt? He wasn't interested in a business arrangement. He wanted the forever thing. Love, marriage, family, and instead he hurt her. And now he had absolutely no idea how she was feeling or if he screwed it up everything between them forever. Shortly after 11, he couldn't stand it anymore. He told his assistant he wasn't going to be gone for about an hour and drove the short distance to Wynn's store, taking the chance that most of the businesses in town she would be open at least until 1 in the afternoon. That was 3:15. Here's 3:16, 3:17, 3:18. Sure enough, the lights were on and a couple of customers stood at the counter. Garrick walked in, looked around, but didn't see Wynn. One of her employees glanced up and smiled. She's in her office, Garrick. Thanks. He made his way down the hall and then stepped into the open door. Wynn was on the computer, staring intently at the screen. She was so beautiful, he thought, coming to a stop. She had a red sweater, a little reindeer on the front, her long curly hair pulled back, and there was a slight frown line between her eyebrows. Warmth swept through him, not just the sexual kind, but that was nice enough, but the loving kind, the woman that it was exactly he had been looking for. He could only hope that he hadn't figured out that it was too late. You got a second? He asked. She jumped and turned to him. Garrick, hi, I wasn't expecting you. I know, I just need a minute of your time. Maybe 2 minutes. He wasn't sure how long it was going to take him to tell her how sorry he was, and how stupid he was, and how much he loved her. Okay. She stood and smothered her hands down her jeans. I wanted to talk to you as well. I was waiting until this afternoon when I thought you would be home. That's good, right? He wanted to talk to him, unless she was planning on telling him he was too stupid for the likes of her and to get lost. That was okay. He swallowed. Do you want to go first? I can if that's better. She smiled. I'll go first. His smile faded. Garrick, I'm sorry about how I acted before when you mentioned co-parenting children together. He winced. Not my best move, and I'm sorry about that. It's okay. I wanted more kids in my life, and you came up with a way to make that happen. I was just surprised because, well, I guess I was surprised and hurt, which I didn't want you to see. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know it's on me, not you. She squared her shoulders and looked at him. I was hurt because I don't just want kids with you, Garrick. I want a real relationship. I'm in love with you. I want everything that goes with that. She was in love with him? He circled the desk and pulled her against him, then pressed his mouth to hers. Her arms came around him and she kissed him back. I had more to say, she mumbled against his lips. He drew it back an inch. Like what? I had a whole speech about how I'm not trying to push you or make you uncomfortable, but that's what I wanted you to know how I felt. He kissed her again, then leaned his forehead against hers. I'm sorry I was an idiot. It was a dumbass thing to say. I love you when, of course, I want kids with you, but I also want you to marry me, have a real family, all of us. You, me, Hunter, Jolene, Chandler, and the baby. All our kids, maybe a few pets. He paused to stare in her eyes. If any of that interests you, she smiled at him. We would need a much bigger house. I have some savings. Me too. Plus, if we sell both our houses and pool our money together, we'd have enough. 316, 317, 318. He tightened his hold on her as love washed through him, and that sounds a lot like a yes. It does, doesn't it? She kissed him. Garrick, I love you, so you'll marry me? I will. Woohoo. He picked her up and spun her around as best as he could in the small office before putting her down. Do you want to wait? He asked. We can. It's up to you if you think a long engagement is a good idea, or we could get married sooner. She smiled. Sooner works. Great. He released her. So I need to go get you a ring, and you need to tell Hunter not to be mad at me anymore, and I want to let Jolene know that she's right. He stopped. Wait a second. If it's okay with you, I'd like to talk to Hunter first, explain what I did, and then ask his permission to marry you. Wynne blinked several times as if holding back tears. That would be great. Garrick pulled her close again. I'm going to spend the rest of my life having your back, Wynne. You have my word on that. I'll have yours too, she whispered. Always. That was 318. Here comes 319, 320, 321, 322, and 323, and then you're getting a rating. Wynne woke up early Christmas morning. There was no reason not to sleep in, but at 5:45, her eyes popped open and refused to close again. After a few minutes, she gave up trying to fake sleep, got up, she shrugged into her robe, then made her way to the kitchen where she started coffee. While that brewed, she pulled out the breakfast casserole she made the night before. She let it warm up a bit before popping it in the oven. The shelves of the refrigerator were overflowing. Her turkey was next door at Garrick's, but all the ingredients for the side dishes were in hers. The chocolate cream pies that were a holiday tradition at her house had a place of honor on the top shelf. She poured herself a cup of coffee, then walked into the dining room. All the extensions were on the table, and the special holiday linens were waiting to be put in place. The house would be full today, she thought happily, full of family and friends and soon-to-be family. Jasper and Renee would join them for dinner, along with Jolene, Chandler, and the baby, Hunter, of course, and Garrick. Just thinking about him made her glance down at the sparkling diamond on her left hand. She and Garrick now were engaged, a happy truth that made her giddy. The knowledge that he loved her as much as she loved him warmed her. They were blessed, she thought. This weekend, Wynne and Hunter and Garrick were going to spend more time looking on houses online. Monday, she and Garrick had an appointment with a mortgage broker to discuss financing for a house they wanted to buy. Tuesday, they were going out with a real estate agent to look at the houses that fit them best. Hunter had already had a wish list that included a bonus room big enough to be converted into a media room and a pool. She wanted a big kitchen with plenty of storage, and Garrick wanted a garage with a workshop area. She went in with her living room and turned on the tree lights before sitting on the sofa. Happiness bubbled through her. She'd come a long way from a scared single mom when she'd been 14 years ago, finding where she belonged, taking a lot of work and some patience, but it had been worth it in the end. Hey, Mom, Hunter said, stretching as he walked into the living room. Merry Christmas, she said, standing and hugging him. He hugged her back, all long, skinny arms, bony ribs. He was still growing and already taller than her. When had that happened? Merry Christmas, he said, as he slumped down on the sofa. You're up early, so are you. He grinned. I couldn't sleep. He pointed to the pile of presents under the tree. Santa came. Yes, he did. Her son stretched again. You know, Mom, it's okay for Garrick to spend the night. I'm not that a kid anymore or anything. Thank you for that, but we're going to wait to live together. The wedding's only a few weeks away. They were getting married at the end of January, hopefully right around the time they closed on their new home. They would get settled, then take a delayed honeymoon in February or March. Hunter would stay with Jasper and Renee while Wynn and Garrick were gone. Until then, she and Garrick would steal their moments together. Once Jolyn and Chandler returned to San Diego, Garrick would have his house back, and they could have a little bit more privacy. Not that she minded having the young family with them, and she and Jolyn had become friends. Chandler was good company. Elijah was an added bonus, giving Wynn a little baby practice. She and Garrick had agreed that they would start trying to get pregnant over the summer. They wanted a few months to get settled into married life before the excitement and, yes, stress of a baby. Garrick and I have been talking about what kind of car I'm going to get you when I turn 16, Hunter said. Have you? Her son grinned. We were talking about buying an old junker and restoring it, but decided that wouldn't be the best choice. We'll get something safe for me and then get an old junker to restore for fun. She sipped her coffee. This all assumes that I'm ready to think about you learning to drive. You're still only 14 and a half. I can get my learner's permit in a year. Hunter gave her a winning smile. You said I could work for you this summer, and I'm going to save all my money and put it to get toward a car. He was a kid with a plan, she thought, both pleased by his maturity and horrified her that he was that old. What he didn't know was that Garrick had already talked about enrolling him in driver's ed over the summer so he could get 25-4 requirement out of the way before he joined JROTC in the fall. As for buying a car, Garrick had some ideas about a safe vehicle for a 16-year-old, and when she started to hyperventilate about her little boy being all grown up, he reminded her that there was still plenty of time. But she knew how quickly that time would pass. With luck, a year from today, she would be several months pregnant. Even if she wasn't, she would still have Garrick, and that was more than what she hoped for. There was a knock at the front door, the sound of a key in the lock. Garrick let himself in. He smiled when he saw them on the sofa. Merry Christmas, he says as he walked toward them. Jolyn and Chandler have just put the baby down and are going to grab a couple of hours of sleep before breakfast, if that works for you. I said about 8:30 or 9, Wynn told him, coming to her feet as he pulled her close. They must be exhausted. They are, but they're happy too. Mindful of Hunter in his room, Garrick kissed her lightly and then greeted her son. Excited about your presents? Garrick asked. Hunter eyed the impressive pile. I am, he yawned. Maybe I'll go back to bed for a couple hours too. He glanced at her. If that's okay, Mom, sure. He got up and ambled toward the door. When his bedroom door closed, Garrick pulled her close and kissed her with a little bit more passion. How you feeling? He asked. Happy. What about you? He smiled at her the same, so much so I woke up early I couldn't get back to sleep. Me too. Let me get a cup of coffee. We can go look at the real estate listings together. His offer might not sound so romantic to some women, but for her it was magical. Garrick took care of the details and worried about the people he loved. He always promised to have her back, and she knew that he would. Real estate listings sound like fun, she said. He put his arm around her. Together they walked into the kitchen. Behind the Christmas tree, lights glowed, and in front of them was a happy future full of promise and love. Outstanding book, Susan Mallery. And you reached my must-read list. Complicated, yet wonderful, yet everything just fit in the moment. And from like one argument where we see the father and daughter having problems, but yet Wynn, who's the neighbor, is the level-headed and brings them closer together. And then when we see Hunter and Wynn having problems, there's Garrick, who's able to bridge that gap between them, so to speak, and help over troubled waters. You just have to read this book. While it has so many emotional levels, it has that burning romance sizzling in there as well. It gets an outstanding 100. You gotta read this. Okay.